What's going on, ladies, gents, and kids of all ages? It is Eric coming back at you once again from the Nerd Cave, and today we have a very awesome deck list for you. Super excited to talk about this one. This is going to be Sapphire Steel, and we're not exactly reinventing the wheel here, so if you're somebody who maybe meta decks isn't your favorite thing to talk about, maybe this one isn't for you. But if you're somebody who is always coming in looking for the more meta stuff, and you want to see my take on the meta stuff, because I always got to tweak a couple things here and there, we are going to be talking about Sapphire Steel today. Before we jump into that, as always, I have to give a big shout out to the Patreons for making the giveaways on the channel possible. Could not do any of this stuff without you guys, so thank you so much for the people who take the time. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. But no more dilly-dallying, and without any further ado, let's jump right into this Sapphire Steel deck list. So we've only got a couple cards in the one cross slot here. The first one is going to be for Captain Hook Forceful Duelist, a 1-cost inkable 1/2 stat line questing for 1 with Challenger 2. If you've been around the channel a while, this is a card you've heard me talk about time and time again. I love me some pirates. He is going to be fantastic just to threaten the board in the early game, and you got to play the old ones, especially when you got the foils, right? May have been reprinted, but we like the original art. Next up, we have 2 Develop Your Brain, a 1-cost inkable action. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put 1 into your hand and 1 on the bottom of your deck. So it's a great way to just kind of cycle through your deck, pick out the cards that you would prefer to have in your hand. It's going to kind of let you do what they refer to in Magic as deck thinning. It's not exactly the same here. In Magic, you're actually looking to pull cards out of your deck to make it more likely that you're going to pull non-land cards, which is typically what you're doing with thinning. With this, we're just kind of more so clearing through the top of our deck, working down towards the bigger threats that we may want to get out. Still in the 1-cost slot, we have 2 Fire the Cannons, a 1-cost uninkable action. Just going to deal 2 damage to something. Great way to either clean up something that's been damaged already or to take out some of those early game threats. Specifically, it's really good against Aurora, which continues to gain in popularity. Then jumping over to the 2-cost slot, and this is 1 or 2 of the cards that we want to be on 2 every game, and that is going to be Tipo Growing Sun, a 2-cost inkable 1/2 stat line questing for 1. If you ever looked up this card in foil, they are weirdly expensive. When you play this character, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell face down and exerted, which is fantastic. So you may be losing a card from your hand, but you're gaining 1 in your inkwell, and you do have ways to refuel your hand, like the next card we're going to talk about, which is going to be 3 Doc Bold Knight, a 2-cost uninkable 1/3 stat line questing for 1. With when you play this character, you may discard your hand to draw 2 cards. So you're typically not going to want to discard your hand if you have any cards in it. You're going to want to wait till you have no cards in your hand, then you discard your hand and draw those 2 cards. But Doc is going to be a great way to refuel after you've run out of cards from things like Tipo. As an alternative to Tipo on turn 2, it can be really good in some of those matchups where you want to keep a lot of cards in your hand, and that is going to be for Sail the Azurite Sea as a 2-cost inkable action. That gives you the ability this turn you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down, and also you draw a card. So keep in mind, it's just this turn you get to do that. You don't have to do it right away, so you can draw that card first and then do it. And also, unlike Tipo, that ink is going to come in ready to use, so if you have a 1-drop you want to play in addition, Sail the Azurite Sea can definitely be better in that position on 2 than Tipo, but it just depends on the particular use case. A great follow-up to Tipo, if that's where you are on 2, we have 3 Pleakley Scientific Expert as a 3-cost inkable 3/4 stat line questing for 1. It's a great stat line on a 3-cost character, and when you play this character, put chosen character of yours into your inkwell face down and exerted. So much like Tipo, it is going in exerted, so you're not going to get to use it right away. But if you're playing that Tipo on 2, that means you've got 4 ink on turn 3. If you've inked already, then you quest with the Tipo or do whatever with the Tipo. You may be looking to challenge with the Tipo if they have something weak enough. It's unlikely. And then you go ahead and throw down that Pleakley, ink the Tipo, and you're going into the next turn ready to play something that costs 6. Last card in the 3-cost slot, we do have 4 Strength of a Raging Fire, a 3-cost inkable action song. So any of those 3 or higher cost characters can sing this song, and it's going to deal damage to chosen character equal to the number of characters you have in play, which is going to be fantastic. That's going to be a great way to clear stuff on the board, especially if you've been able to put some characters down. Moving to the 4-cost slot, because this is really where you're going to want to be on 3, so you don't have a ton of 3-cost stuff in this deck. We do have 4 Scrooge McDuck Aficionado of Antiques, a 4-cost uninkable 5/5 stat line questing for 2. This is a fantastic way to threaten the board. A 5/5 coming down probably on turn 3, especially if you went first, is going to be pretty gross for your opponent to try to deal with. And that's a card I'm happy to say, much like many of the cards you see in my videos, that I got foil when nobody cared about them, because I was playing them in Amber Sapphire of all things, so I foiled them out. with Anna. It was a really good deck. Our other 4-cost character in this deck is going to be 4 Pluto Guard Dog, a 4-cost inkable 1/5 stat line, questing for 1 with Bodyguard. But when this character has no damage on him, he's getting +4, much like those Lawrences. So if you have no damage on him, your opponent doesn't have any way to deal direct damage to him, they're looking at least taking that first challenge into a 5/5, probably giving some kind of sacrificial lamb, and then challenging with something else that can clear your Pluto off the board if that's their best option. Keep in mind, you don't have to play those Plutos in Bodyguard mode. So if you're not trying to hide something and you just want to be able to threaten the board with a 5/5 and force them to have the direct damage or not quest in, you can play them upright. Moving over to the 5-cost slot, we do have 4 Jasmine Fearless Princess, a 5-cost inkable 3/7 stat line, questing for 2. During your turn, this character gains evasive, so great way to wipe out all of those evasive threats other than Genie. But if we need to deal with a Genie, we do have the secondary ability on Jasmine, which is choose and discard a card. This character gains Challenger +3 this turn. So if you got something to discard, you're going to be able to potentially pump her up to a 6/7 and clear out a pretty significant threat on your opponent's side of the board. Our other card in the 5-cost slot, and another one that I got for some random weird deck when they were like 10 cents for foils, we do have 4 Donald Duck Focus Flatfoot, a 5-cost inkable 3/4 stat line, questing for 2. With when you play this character, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted, so much like those Mickey detectives that we saw in set 1. But this guy's coming down for 5, has a stronger stat line, has a stronger questing ability, is going to just threaten the board that much more. And especially when you're in a position with those Pleakleys that you're going into turn 4 ready to play something like this and ink an additional time, you have so much ink so early in the game with a deck like this. Next up in the 6-cost slot, we do have 4 Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, a 6-cost inkable 4/5 stat line, questing for 2, shifting for 4. Not relevant to this particular deck. We don't play any shift targets for her, but when you play this character, deal 1 damage to each opposing character, which is going to be great against everything that doesn't have resist. And during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may deal 2 damage to chosen opposing character. So that's the most interesting ability with this Tinkerbell, even more so than being able to deal 1 to everything, which is generally not going to wipe out a ton of the current relevant threats. But that second ability is going to put you in a position where your opponent may not want to quest in, they may not want to challenge in. She's going to be able to take some very favorable challenges into pretty much everything that doesn't have evasive, and once she clears those things out, if she's able to banish something, she's going to be able to deal that 2 damage to any of those characters who do have evasive, or those characters that maybe are just ready currently, and that's going to make her a real menace to the board. As far as dealing with those evasives, which you are definitely going to have to do in this current meta, we do have 4 Robin Hood Unrivaled Archer as a 6-cost inkable 4/4 stat line, questing for 2. With when you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw a card, which is entirely likely. You're looking to ramp out pretty quick, dump your hand pretty quick, and run out of cards pretty quick and start looking for those like docks and another card we're going to talk about a little bit further down the line to be able to continue to fuel your board. So it's very likely Robin Hood's going to give you some card draw, and during your turn he gains evasive, and that puts him in a position where he can out those Genies and Dumbos and all those other evasive threats. Making sure your opponents can't just sit there and keep their characters upright, we do have 4 Vincenzo Santorini, a 7-cost inkable 2/8 stat line, questing for 3. You heard that right, questing for 3. And when you play this character, deal 3 damage to chosen character. So as soon as he comes down, he's going to bang something out for 3 damage, probably banishing it, especially if it's got damage on it already. So Vincenzo is a great way to threaten the board. Force your opponent to take those quests or challenges at risk of losing their guys anyway. Last character in the deck, we do have 4 Hades Infernal Schemer, a 7-cost uninkable 3/6 stat line, questing for 2. So a little bit more strength, a little less willpower, but he only quests for 2, not for 3 like those Vincenzo's. When you play this character, you may put chosen opposing character into their player's inkwell face down. So you can't target your own characters with this. You do have to target an opposing character, which is generally what you want to do anyway, because you're going to be wiping away those big threats in the late game. He's going to deal with everything that doesn't have ward, and he's going to come down and also be a pretty big body on the board that's going to be annoying for your opponent to try to deal with and questing in their face for 2. And the last card in the deck, as far as taking advantage of especially those Vincenzos when you're not in a position you want to quest, but also those Hades when you're not in a position you want to quest, we do have 2 Beyond the Horizon as a 7-cost uninkable action song, and it is Sing Together 7, so you can use those smaller characters. You don't have to use Hades or Vincenzo, but that is probably where you're going to end up. And choose any number of players. They discard discard their hand and draw 3 cards each. Like I mentioned, you're going to be looking to fuel out your hand pretty quickly onto the board and really just kind of fill up your board as much as you can. We don't have any big board wipes to really worry about other than Under the Sea, which, you know, if it happens, it happens. It's annoying, but we could work around it when we need to. You're very likely to be making your opponent discard more cards than you're discarding, and if this is the last card in your hand, you're just getting rid of it to draw 3 cards. So especially if you're singing it, you could potentially doing it with all of your ink open to play whatever you're drawing into, and just continue to remove your opponent's threats while you slowly quest in to get to 20. So Beyond the Horizon, great way to close out those games, particularly in those Blurple matchups where your opponents end up drawing a lot of cards. Vincenzo deals with Dumbo very handily, and then once you get him down, you sing that Beyond the Horizon, get rid of all those cards that they've been drawing. You're very good position to kind of be in the driver's seat for the rest of the game. But what are you guys' thoughts on Sapphire Steel? Do you think it's not topping as much in events just because it's not that good and Blurple still has the upper hand? I personally don't find that to be the case, but maybe Blurple is the deck to beat, and Sapphire Steel just doesn't really have a place. But what are you guys' thoughts in the comments below? Are there cards you think that I should have been playing that I didn't play, or cards that I am playing that you think I am crazy to play? Always love to hear your thoughts one way or another. And when you see those toys, video games, and Pleakley's green head disappearing into my green screen off in the distance, remember, it is not a mirage. You guys have a great day.